Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look at ways we can come together and help one another work more effectively as we serve the Lord. Today we have with us Miss Charity Sexton. She and her husband live in Suffolk, Virginia, where he pastors CrossPointe Baptist Church. But Charity has been a registered nurse for over 7 years. And so, Charity, thank you for stopping in to be with us today.
I'm glad to be here.
So you've been quite busy over the last several months, haven't you?
I have been quite busy. It's kind of interesting being in a hospital setting. There's been a lot of challenges and a lot of things we've faced, but I believe overall we've done a really good job at eliminating some of the infection precautions and things that's helped us get through this crisis.
That's great. So on a daily basis, you've had to be really careful not to get COVID-19 and as you've been working with your patients. So you've learned a lot about the social distancing and wearing the personal protective equipment and so forth. Tell us a bit about what that's been like.
So, of course, we do have to be very cautious in transferring from things we touch, places that we go. Of course, coming home to my home environment, I have to be extremely careful. So we do require PPE at the hospital, and we have had moments where we have been limited on PPE. We've even had moments where we've had to recycle PPE. We've had to have PPE mask re-cleaned and refurnished for us to be able to use over and over again, which can be a little bit nerve-wracking at times, but we know that we do what we have to do in this process. So I do have to wear a full PPE, includes a gown. And these are paper gowns that are supposed to be disposable. However, we've been having to wear them multiple times. We also have to wear protective eye gear. We have to wear protective masks, and many of us are required to wear more than one mask. So we're wearing 2 masks oftentimes, which can really put a limitation on how much oxygen you're actually receiving yourself. So it can be difficult to breathe. So, and it's very important that we hand wash. We can't stress that enough. We do a lot of hand washing in between care for our patients. We do a lot of education to our patients on how they need to care for themselves and keep themselves safe. And it's a process coming home, because we have to de-gown, we have to contaminate ourselves by eliminating all the clothing that we had on, which oftentimes I do in a separate location. And we have to wash those things immediately. I don't take any of my belongings inside my home. I clean them and leave them out in a separate area in my garage. So it can be very tricky, but we do what we do, and we seem to do the task well.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you're doing there at the hospital, but also you and your husband are in ministry. So there's a lot of lessons you've learned in the hospital that we can transfer over as churches are opening up and people are interacting with one another. There's a lot we can learn from what you all have had to do as well. Share with us some of the lessons about how we can protect ourselves as we open up our churches and as we interact with one another.
Well, I think it's really important that we understand that, and I talk about this a little bit in the article, but we're so used to our traditional handshaking experience. We've grown up that way. And it's really kind of hard to separate ourselves from that practice. However, in this post-COVID-19 culture, we really do have to kind of rethink our greetings. We have to rethink our process of coming together. And doing that, I think it's really important that people understand that hand washing is crucial. We have to keep our hands washed. It's very crucial that we do not touch one another, that we continue to practice that social distancing. And it's very important that we educate our younger generation as well. I think a lot of our older generations understand the importance, but a lot of times we feel that our younger generations think that if they're not likely to be a carrier, or they're not showing signs of illness, doesn't mean that they're not actually still carrying or could be carrying a COVID-19 virus. So it's very important that we understand that and that we educate our church members. It's very important that we keep masks on. I believe it's going to be crucial in coming back and joining together in services to have our mask on, to create that social distancing between our families when they're sitting inside the auditorium in the services. It's very important. And it's important to know that if you are showing any kind of signs or symptoms of a cough, a fever, sore throat, please don't come to church. Stay home and care for yourself, protect your family, and protect others by not exposing them to a possible COVID-19 virus.
Wow, that's great information. And so you're saying a lot of the older folks already think that way, and probably were already perhaps doing a lot of the hand washing that we really need to do. So we want to think about touching doorknobs, touching different surfaces, and then thinking a lot about washing hands. And then if we're not able to wash our hands, have some hand sanitizer, and it's good to even carry some of that around. And you mentioned the social distancing and so forth. I suspect the hardest part for us will be the handshaking, and some folks have to get their hug in. One of the things you mentioned in the article that you wrote for us was there's some alternative ways that we can greet each other and be social without actually touching each other. And I'm sure you all have had to work on that for a couple of months in the hospitals here, but tell us a bit about some of those ideas about being social without actually touching one another.
Right, and that can be difficult. And I would say, really, truly, it's probably would be a struggle for me because I was raised in the South. I raised in a very friendly church. I grew up with a lot of people just demonstrating that handshaking experiences, and so it's difficult for me even. But I believe that in studying and just reading some different materials on this post-COVID-19 culture within our church, I feel as if we just realize that a lot of times friendliness can come from just a presence. It can come from a facial experience, that greeting from your words, how you speak to one another. It's very important. And I believe that we can demonstrate friendliness through the words that we say, from our facial expressions, from other body language, besides actually touching one another. So it's important to know that if you're a person who just feels like you have to make some kind of contact, I would highly recommend practicing not making any contact. But you do have these options of, if you have to tap a foot, that foot tap touch. I would really recommend trying to limit elbow taps, but if you have to be a contact person and you feel like you just have to have an alternative, then I would say the best alternative would be elbow to elbow. That would be, and I really do recommend trying to avoid any contact. I believe it's much safer if you avoid any contact, but truly friendliness can come by just engaging yourself in conversation with a church member that comes in, engaging with them, asking them about their week, about their day, about their personal experience through the week, really focusing on eye contact. A smile and a greeting can go a long way.
That's great. And they can even wave. And but you mentioned a smile is a good thing. And maybe go ahead and start thinking, well, how are you doing? Trying to get the words going. And maybe that's why we shake hands and hug and all that so much. Sometimes we may not feel like we know what to say, but we go ahead and ask and get a conversation kind of going. And it's really that initial approach, isn't it?
It really is. And I know with my patients even, we have used as many hand motions as salutes, little salutes to our patients. We have used air handshakes, which is handshakes from a distance. We have, for those who are just very touchy, and as far as handshaking, we have offered the elbow so that we prevent that real close contact. So it's really important to know that. I think people just want to be engaged in conversation. They want to be, they want people to listen to them, to make eye contact to them, and to just express the fact that we would love to shake your hand, but we know it's best for you and protecting you that if I keep my social distance.
That's great. And so especially for churches that are just opening now, whatever habits begin and, we start out with is what we'll likely carry on. So we really want to think about that and be aware. Any other ideas you have for how we can protect each other in this particular environment? And as we think about the fall, some folks say this could go along the lines of the whole, the way the flu works. What kinds of suggestions do you have for all of us to keep ourselves healthy during those times?
So I think it's really important when we, in reflection to actually opening our services up to our congregation, I do want to stress it would be really helpful to have a team put together that can actually sanitize between services. If you're having more than one service, I would highly recommend that you have a team put together that has the proper equipment and the proper cleaning supplies, those supplies that kill 99.9 at least % of bacterias, to refinish those surfaces, the sitting areas, the doors, the handles, the faucets, the water handles to our water fountains, the front entryways, exits. We want to make sure that we are continually cleaning these surfaces. And I think another thing, Dr. Moody, that's really important that I want to stress, because there's a lot of confusion on whether or not gloves keep us healthy. I want to stress the fact that it is very vital that people understand that wearing gloves is not the best practice. Because unfortunately, you're wearing gloves and you may have those gloves and you wear those gloves throughout the day, or you wear them to the service. But what you don't realize is that you are just transferring everything that you touch is just becoming a vehicle of transportation to touch other services. So you're carrying all these things that hover and stay on these gloves. It's really much safer for us to eliminate the glove practice and really just focus on hand washing and even antibacterial lotions or bacterial germicides that we can use on our hands, because gloves is really a tool, a vehicle tool to carry these viruses to other places and transfer them even to yourself.
Oh, that's great. That's good. So whatever your glove has touched, it's taking that from one place to another. And that's why you're stressing so much, wash your hands. And if you can't wash your hands, use the hand sanitizer and so forth. That's great information. Anything else you think of before we close off today?
Well, we mentioned it briefly just earlier, but it is important that we continue to practice wearing our mask if at all possible. I know there are some medical conditions that patients are not, or people who with certain illnesses are not able to wear a mask for certain reasons. But if you are able to wear a mask, it is very helpful to keep that mask on in a lot of large spaces where a lot of people are occupying those spaces. It will be very helpful to our church members to make this practice. And I believe that just the mask wearing, the not wearing the gloves, sanitizing our hands, making sure that we have teams that are cleaning these surfaces in between service times, or maybe even during the service times, re-cleaning some of these surfaces. Have a team in place that you have a hand sanitation station. I know we have a hand sanitizing station. So we're going to educate our members as they're coming in that we really require them to take advantage of this tool that we have so that we continue to keep people safe.
That's great. And so that also helps people feel safe. They're more likely to come back, and they're more likely to stay. So a lot of folks, if we're just starting out services, they're going to be coming and looking and seeing, do I feel safe? And you mentioned it might not be a bad idea to have someone cleaning in real time, walking around, and they see that person cleaning, taking care of the doorknobs and so forth. That's good information. Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate the good work you're doing there in the hospital, but also what you and Brother David are doing there with your church in Suffolk. And we just pray God's blessings upon you. And we thank you for stopping by and giving us some time today.
Thank you, Dr. Moody.